Welcome everyone to APH Virtual Excel Camp Junior High School. This week is Mission Impossible. I hope you're ready. Welcome again, Virtual Excel Camp Junior High School. You're in the right place for Mission Impossible today. Great to have you. Feel free to drop in the chat who you are and where you're from. We love welcoming people from all over the United States, and we even have some international guests joining us. Welcome, welcome. Again, you are in the Virtual Excel Camp for Junior High School, and this week is Mission Impossible. Glad to have you join us. Welcome, Illinois. Welcome, Richmond, Virginia. Glad to have you here with us today. Your instructors for today. Heather, I'm doing it again.
Pichette.
Heather Pichette-Spencer, teacher of the visually impaired and orientational mobility specialist. She has been enthusiastically serving students with visual impairments for over 20 years. Heather's mission lies in supporting students of all ages and abilities in discovering their unique talents and gifts to actively engage and share with the world. Heather is also a Baptiste certified yoga instructor, Reiki master, did I do it right this time?
Reiki.
And mother of two beautiful souls. Say hello, Miss Heather.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Happy Tuesday. We're so glad to see you all here.
And Jennifer Stelmach, another teacher of the visually impaired. She has been a TVI for 7 years and is the founder and director of Camp Abilities Florida. She also works as a parent advisor for the Florida School for the Deaf and Blind. In her free time, she enjoys spending time with her 3-year-old son, Grayson, anywhere outside, often at a beach or pool. Say hi, Jennifer.
Hey, everybody.
And we have a student intern with us today, Susan Drake, a student intern from Missouri State University. She has been a special education teacher for 7 years and is completing her certification now. She lives on a farm with her veterinarian husband, Randy, son, Renan, and a herd of corgis and cows. Hello, Susan.
Hello, everyone.
And one of our activities, extension activities, was doing artwork, and we did have someone send us artwork. Josiah sent us Carnage Attacks Baby Gorilla, Avengers Save the Day. And so this line drawing has 2 round shapes with eyes and hands. So Carnage is attacking this baby gorilla. And surrounding them are 3 sticker Avengers. You have, oh shoot, now I remember, Thor and the Hulk and Iron Man surrounding so they can save the day. Awesome, awesome art. So I am going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to your instructors. But one more moment, I just want to say hi to Denver and Virginia, Dallas, Texas, and Ohio. We are so glad to have you. Take it away, Susan.
Hey guys, we are so glad to have you here today. This morning this afternoon here where I'm at, we're gonna talk about your IEP, accommodations, and being your own advocate. And I know that Jennifer and Heather, before we get started, kind of wanted to talk about our extension activities that we've had. We've had 3 so far. Heather or Jennifer, you wanna jump in for a minute about those?
Sure. So our first extension activity was to complete an art project. No parameters. You can complete any kind of art you would like to. So you could use any medium you want, different colors, whatever you feel. You could use things around your house to make art. It doesn't have to be on paper. We would love to see more art projects submitted.
And on Monday, we also had our Break the Code worksheet where you had to match up the letters from the key to break the code. By show of hands, was anyone able to break the code?
So if you can find your hand button, you can raise your hand, or you could put a Y in the chat if you broke that code.
Oop, Lilith was able to break her code. Everyone, just one more second to see if anyone else got to figure it out. Alrighty, nice job, Lilith. If anyone else gets to break the code, you can share with us tomorrow and tell us that you were able to break the code, okay? And now we're going to go back to talking about your accommodations, your IEP, and being your own advocate.
Okay, guys, on your screen, you will see, and I am going to describe to you some terms that you might know, and this is Susie, by the way, when we are done. So Heather and Jennifer, I was unable to pull my chat, so if you'll keep an eye on that and let me know how that's going. The things that we're going to talk about today include your IEP. We're going to talk about being an advocate. We're going to talk about TVI, or teacher of the visually impaired, and what it means to be an orientation and mobility specialist, an accommodation and modification. We'll talk about ADA, or the Americans with Disabilities Act, IDEA, which does mean something different, accessibility, and assistive technology. If you know what some of those mean, why don't you go ahead and tell me in the chat? Or if you have a copy of your IEP, go ahead and tell me that in the chat now. So I'm going to tell you what I think an IEP is, and you tell me if you think I'm right, okay? So it stands for Individualized Education Plan. I know that there are a couple different ways you can look at that, and some people say Individualized Education Program, but it is your plan. It's a plan for you. It's how you are going to be successful in the classroom. And we as an IEP team meet to create a legal document. So it's kind of like a contract between you and the school to say how we are going to make sure that you are successful. And it lists out all of the services, accommodations, and goals for the next school year. If you know what one of your accommodations or goals is, could you say yes or no in the chat? We do it, and we do it once a year. So we have to meet at, wow, lots of people know exactly what their goals are. That's fantastic. I am so impressed. A lot of times, students don't go and meet with their IEP team until they get into high school. And it's really important that you know what's in your IEP and what is in that document. That way you can go into a classroom and say, hey, this isn't working for me, or this is what my IEP says, and things like that. We do meet at least one time every school year. And I know that seems crazy, but it's one time every school year. And you know, we can meet more often if we need to. And you will meet one time every year until you graduate from school, or until you no longer need special education services. So there are a couple things I talked about at the beginning, and they were some acronyms. And that is really what defines an IEP. So special education started a long time ago with the ADA and the Americans with Disabilities Act. And that really kind of started in order to make workplace and facilities accessible. Your screen says the Americans with Disabilities Act is the law that made it illegal to, oh, and my screen went on to the next, to discriminate against a disabled person in terms of employment opportunities, to access to transportation, public accommodations, communications, and government activities. While it does not drive your IEP, it drives all the accommodations outside of it. So ADA came first. That's why we have ramps to get into public places. That's why it's illegal to discriminate against a person with a disability when they're getting hired. Okay, so the Americans with Disabilities Act, that's ADA, it came first. And then once that act was passed, people thought, well, you know what? If we are making it so people are not with disabilities, including those with visual impairments or blindness, are not discriminated against in places to work or to go shopping, then we should not be discriminating against them in the education system either. And so the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, I gotta make sure I get all my acronyms right, or IDEA, was passed. And in a nutshell, it just means that you are guaranteed the right to access to an education the same way that anybody without a disability has access to an education. And that's why you have may or may not, but probably have an IEP, so that you have the same access to an education that a person who is fully sighted does. That's why you have IDEA and an IEP, okay? So your screen says the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act is the law that puts the IEP into effect. There is a link if you want to read all about it, but that's a lot of words, and I'm going to go on to the next thing, okay? And that's basically why we have all of these systems in place to make sure you have access to education and all of the things you need to be successful. So probably the most important thing you need to know is who's on your team. Can you tell me who's on your team? If you can tell me one person that's on your team, you can raise your hand now, and I'll take 2 people that have raised their hands. Everybody else can tell me in the chat. I know that I go to a lot of oh, Leanne.
Yes, Ava raised her hand.
Perfect.
So we'll give her a second. There you go, Ava. We can hear you.
Hey, Ava.
All right. Hello.
Who comes to your IEP meetings and is on your team?
Whoa, there's a lot of people. I've actually been there myself, but
Fantastic.
my, teacher of the visually impaired, or TVI for short,
Uh-huh.
my mainstream education teachers, parents, those are some of the people who come.
Absolutely. You did a fantastic job. Thank you so much, okay?
And Mara said teachers, Josiah said TVIs, Hannah said TVI, Lilith, my parents, O&M teacher, and TVI.
And one more, Thomas.
Hey, Thomas. So glad to have you today.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, so I know my vision teacher, who changes a lot, is there, and so is my own instructor that will probably change this year.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Thomas. Yeah, so always if you have, if you are blind or have a visual impairment, your O&M or orientation and mobility specialist, or your teacher of the visually impaired, your TVI, they should be included in your IEP meetings, because they can definitely help you advocate for the things that you need. So they're important. I have been a special education teacher for a long time, so I always go to IEPs. So that's another one. If any of you have ever had anything like speech, so my son gets speech, and his speech pathologist goes to all those things. A physical therapist might attend. What about an occupational therapist? Any of those things. I have had anybody that has a one-on-one paraprofessional, they might attend. So any of those things. And did you know, and get ready to tell me yes or no in the chat. Did you know that you can invite somebody that you might want at your IEP meeting? Tell me yes or no if you knew that in the chat.
Mara said yes. Lilith said yes. Owen said no. We've got kind of 50-50, some yeses and some nos.
Yeah. So sometimes people don't know that. Even as adults and teachers, I have found that a lot of adults and teachers don't know that you can invite people to your IEP meeting. And so that's something that is important to remember. So this slide asks, could I invite someone else to my meeting? Absolutely. And some people that you might want to consider are, if you're going to college, maybe an accessibility services representative. I know at our local college, we have a person that will come and help you plan for your transition, or your voc rehab representative. So if you want them there and you think that they need to help you plan, you need to make sure and call them and say, hey, I'd really like you to be there. Another person that you might think about including is an outside advocate or lawyer. That's something to really think about. If you have somebody that you might invite to your IEP meeting that I haven't thought of, why don't you put it in the chat or raise your hand?
Just a quick reminder, everybody, if you are chatting, make sure you change your chat setting to all panelists and attendees if you want everyone else in the chat to be able to read it. Otherwise, it's just going to your facilitators.
That is very important to remember. Because otherwise, we can't all see it. Okay.
Dane asked if you can invite anyone.
You can, you could probably invite anybody, but the thing to remember about your IEP meeting is it's really planning for the next year of your education. So if the person you're inviting is not really going to help you plan for your education, then there's really no point in inviting them. So I may not want to invite my cousin who doesn't know much about my visual impairment, right? If they're not going to be able to help me talk about what's best for me in the classroom. Does that make sense? Can you tell me yes or no in the chat? Heather, did you want to add to that?
I'm sorry, I was responding to the chat.
Okay, you look like you were, so I didn't want to miss you if you had something to add.
Yeah, so I mentioned that inviting people that would support you in the IEP process would be who you would want to invite to an IEP. So, you know, you wouldn't want to invite just a friend unless there was a reason for them to be there because they were supporting you in your education or they were seeing what was going on in the classroom and could help you. But generally your parents, you know, maybe you have an aunt or an uncle or somebody that would support you that way, or somebody, you can also invite another teacher from the school. If you have a favorite teacher that knows your needs really well, you could ask that they be invited too.
Absolutely. And I will have to say, you know, I'm in my 30s, so I'm over 30. And I just had to go to a really important meeting at school. And I called my dad, even as old as I am, and asked for advice. So there's nothing wrong with reaching out and asking those important people that do know your strengths and weaknesses for advice, as long as they're going to support you, like Heather said. It's always important to know who those people are. So make sure that you are including people that are going to think about, oh yeah, I know what they're working on as far as TVI or O&M and those types of goals.
Yes, and Dia said I might invite the teachers that work with my academic subjects, invite my math, science, English, social studies. Great, your core academic teachers, that would be wonderful because they see you every day in the classroom and they can see you know, if you're struggling or you need support, and they can also get ideas at your IEP through conversation and add to the IEP.
Mina has her hand up.
Oh, perfect.
Go ahead, Mina.
You could invite your, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. You could invite your, like, if you're transferring to a new school, you could invite the principal of your new school, or if you're going to college, the dean of the college.
Absolutely, Mina. Those are great ideas. Another thing that we have done in the past for our students that are getting jobs is we have included the person that's hiring them for their job. So that's something to think about. If you're going to get a job or something like that, we've included the person that is hiring them so that they have an idea of the accommodations the student may need in the workplace. So those are all great ideas. And I can't believe how smart you guys are and how aware of all the things going on with your IEP and your programming. It's amazing to me. So one thing that I'm aware that you guys know already, because you've told me, is your TBI and your O&M. So some of your biggest advocates are the people here talking to you today. We're your teachers of the visually impaired and your O&M specialists. Obviously, Heather's our O&M person with us today, but we are the people that are aware of what is specifically out there for you. And when you're looking for advice on accommodations and services and things like that, or going into an IEP meeting, we are your specialists. And so we are some of the most important people you can take into that meeting besides your parents and things like that. And we really want to make sure that you know that we're you're big advocates for you. So that's your TBI and O&M. Another big part of your IEP is an accommodation. And I don't know if you knew this, but there is a difference between an accommodation and a modification on your IEP. There's a difference. So an accommodation kind of changes how you learn material, how the learning happens. So can you tell me, and Leanne, be ready for some raised hands because I know they're going to be quick on this one, okay? As students with visual impairments or who may be blind, how you may have an accommodation on your IEP. How may you access your education or materials? Can you raise your hand and tell me, or tell me in the chat? Oh, I see Jennifer. Is that right?
Yep, Jennifer.
Through like Braille materials, like hard copy Braille.
Absolutely. Braille is one of the ways that you will accommodate. We will accommodate material for you. So you may get all of your material in Braille. Fantastic, Jennifer. I love it. Who else do we have, Leanne?
Josiah?
Josiah. Tell me, man.
I could use my special laptop with my Braille display.
Absolutely. Yes, you could use your laptop with your Braille display. You could use actual hard copy Braille. Somebody else raising their hand, Leanne?
Ava?
Ava, are you back?
Yes, I'm back.
All right, what do you got for me, girl?
So this is an accommodation that I personally had. For some websites, I would have to use my iPhone because of the accessibility of the websites and, you know, to make them easier to access on there. VoiceOver.
Absolutely. Yeah, so those are all accommodations. Those are great.
In the chat,
print.
Yes. In the chat, Dia said, when it comes to coursework, I use hard copy Braille books or use an electronic device. Christian said audio and Braille. Samarth said screen readers. Great answers.
We got one more hand raised. Mina?
So my friend can't see things. He's also blind and he can't see things that are very far away. And on the overhead projectors usually used in classrooms, the text is very small. So he uses his phone and he takes a picture of it and then he zooms in so he can read the text.
That's wonderful. That's a great accommodation, Mina. Thank you for sharing.
Alyssa said she uses large print.
Samantha uses a screen reader. Dane has a binocular and a magnifier, and he sits close to the front of the room.
Those are all great accommodations. Yeah, so you guys have named a lot of really great things that you use. And Jennifer, I know you had a list. Have we hit your whole list?
Yeah, we've got most of them. We had on here Braille, large print, extended time, preferential seating at the front of the classroom, dictation of answers or a reader, hands-on exploration of materials, shortened assignments, alternate assignments, the use of a cane, the use of low vision devices or aids, including a magnifier, monocular, CCTV, small group testing, special lighting, a seat away from the window, or possibly special transportation.
Perfect. So tell me now in the chat, yes or no, if you had thought of all of those accommodations Jennifer had thought of. Because some of those I hadn't even thought of. And I've done this job for a while. Some of those were kind of new to me.
Kelly had a question too. She asked if she goes to a private college, if she will get an IEP.
So that is an interesting question, Kelly. It was Kelly, right? Just want to make sure I get my person right. So private colleges are not public funded and so don't have the same requirements that public colleges have. I was just talking about this with another student that's going to a private university or college. And you will need to get a hold of their accessibility office or the person that works in that office because they will allow for some accommodations, but it will be completely different than what a public university is mandated to do. Does that make sense?
Yes. And it's
Okay.
not called an IEP in college.
No. And honestly, there are a lot of things they allow in college that are not necessarily things that are going to follow you into college. So they will allow a note taker in college, kind of a standard practice. So that's part of why it's important to include those people in your IEP meetings. And Jennifer, I saw your hand. Go ahead and raise it again and we'll get to you, I promise. I just want to make sure we're kind of getting everybody's questions answered.
And what is it called in college, Susan? Do you know the name of? I don't know if it varies by state or not.
You know, I don't even know if we have an official name here. I'm in Missouri and I honestly don't know. Leanne might have a better idea. She does.
I do. So if you want to talk about your college is really your ADA, your Adults with Disabilities Act. It's not for a educational system, it is really for accommodation. So you definitely need to contact your college and figure out what your college offers. Each college seems to handle it different and some are better than others. So this is a great time to network with your friends or reach out to people who've gone to that college that needed accommodations. Back over to you, Susan.
Leanne. Yeah, I got it. That was a great answer. And I'm so glad you were here to answer that because I've had several students go on to college and we've had I have a university in my town and we have a great relationship. So it's been a fairly easy process. But I appreciate that. And for those of you who are looking into colleges or universities, get that process started now. Start researching those and looking at where you're going or where you'd like to go. And like Leanne said, start building those relationships. Okay, I'm gonna move on, but keep throwing those questions out there and we will get them answered so that you have them all answered and you know where you're going. Okay, guys? So kind of something that goes on with an accommodation is a modification. And a modification on your IEP changes what you are learning. So if modifications are made to your curriculum, do you know that? Tell me in the chat. If you know what they are, that's great. I know one of the things we do a lot is changing what is read. So for English language arts, we may change the book that is read. So that is completely changing what is being learned. So that's probably one of the simplest modifications made to the curriculum. I'm gonna keep going.
Oh, Lilith asked, isn't that cheating, a modification? Good question,
you know
Lilith.
Lilith, that is fantastic. You know, if it is in your IEP and it is deemed necessary and proper by your IEP team that you need the modification to be successful in the classroom, then it is not cheating. So usually when we do something like that as an IEP team, and remember, you are part of the team, so you get to advocate whether or not you feel it's necessary and proper. So like in our 10th grade English class, we typically read Lord of the Flies, okay? We may decide that because due to length in Braille and words read per minute in Braille, we may change it to a different text. That would be a modification. So it's not really changing the rigor or what is expected from the student, but it is changing the required text for the student because the student's a Braille reader, and we expect so many pages read per day of their sighted peers. Does that make sense? So no, it's not cheating, and it will be made by the decision will be made by the IEP team. And like I said, you are on the IEP team. So if you're in the IEP team meeting and you think that you can read all of that book or whatever the modification is, that you think you can do it, that's your time to jump in there and say, no, I can do this. And that's great. And if we're on your team and you say that, we are going to wholeheartedly support you. Okay? And I think that's a fantastic question. Okay, so one of the most important things that we can talk about is how to be your own advocate. One of the biggest parts of that is to believe in yourself. You are the expert on you. I don't know as much about you as you do. Your parents don't even know as much about you as you do. And that's really important to remember going into these meetings and talking about your IEP is you know you better than anybody. And you have to be prepared to talk about you. Another thing that we forget is it's important to know your rights. Do your research. Be educated about what is right and what is legal and what you deserve in the education environment. And it's really important, and this is hard even for me, it's important to not get emotional about it. And like I said, that's very hard. And I'm sure Heather will agree with me and Jennifer will agree with me. As your teachers, we sometimes get emotional about it because we really want what's best for you. So I know that it can be hard for you to not get emotional about it. And so that's probably one of the things about knowing your rights. And it's the most important thing is to be educated, to know the legal parts of it and go in and say that part and to try not to get emotional. Decide what you need. So this is hard for me even now. You have to decide what you need versus what you want. Now here's the thing, I really want a Porsche. Like I really want a Porsche, but I need a Toyota. Okay. And you have to remember that there are things you need, like you may need a refreshable braille display. Yes, Heather.
Harsha is asking what concise means.
Oh, so concise is probably not talk like Susie and say exactly what you want. So in your classroom, if you need to sit in the front row, I would flat out say, I need to sit in the front row, in the middle. Or if there's too much glare on the screen, there's too much glare. Okay, things like that. Very clear language. I need 18-point font. I need 24-point font. It's got to be an Arial. Those type of things. Very clearly state what you need. Okay, that's express yourself. Girl, you're way ahead of me. Number 4, express yourself clearly. Confident and concise. Be a confident and concise advocate. So you say exactly what you need. And then on number 5, you be firm but respectful. So if you give respect, you will get respect. And I think that it's really important that you go in and you say, Mrs. Johnson, I'm having a hard time seeing the board. I don't know if it might be helpful for me to sit in the front row. And then if she says no, I would say, no, Mrs. Johnson, I have to sit in the front row. You're being polite, you're saying what you need, and then if there's a seating arrangement thing, you're saying, no, I have to sit in the front row because of my vision or whatever. And when you are polite and have respect, people will give that back to you. And it's important to remember that. How about, I know, was it Theo yesterday that had a really great example of being his own advocate? Can you tell me in the chat, and if you want to, you can raise your hand, that'd be fantastic. If you have had an experience where you've had to be your own advocate, and what that experience was like for you. So you can say yes in the chat. I know as adults we do that quite regularly, where we have to say, hey, I need this. Can you help me out? I had to do it with my cell phone last week. So my settings app on my phone wouldn't open. And hey, Josiah, we will get to you in just a second. And I had to call my carrier and they would not give me a new phone. And I had to repeatedly be respectful to get it. So Josiah, let's hear what you have to say, buddy.
There you go. I got hit in the face with the ball once, and it's in my IEP that I cannot be around balls. And I'm supposed to have adapted gym, but they didn't follow it. And I had to be rushed to the hospital. And
what should you have done at school in that point in your situation? Ask them. Wait. What should I have done at this point?
That's what happened. But what should I have done as a student?
Stay in contact.
So do you want our advice about what you should have done?
Yeah.
Because you try to be polite and tell them you weren't allowed to do the activity.
Because I was trying to be polite and tell them I couldn't do the activity, but the teacher didn't listen. It wasn't a sub, but the usual teacher was at that moment was talking to my mom and dad at that day, and still up to this day I cannot see out of my left eye. Ever since I have permanent damage to my left eye now. That's how hard the ball hit my glasses. Like I can see out my right eye. But once when I got hit with the ball for 5 minutes, I couldn't see out my right eye. And that's really bad because that's my good eye. The only the one I see out of. Um, close up. Like for my left eye, everything used to be like fuzzy. I could kind of make stuff out, but I'd have to like look at it with my right eye, and then it'd be kind of clear, what it'd be. Even now, I can't even see a thing out my left eye. I can't even see what it's like looking at. That's not cool.
So what advice did they give you?
Okay, so I think maybe for one thing, the other people, oh, did you want to add to that, Josiah? Is that?
That was me.
Okay.
Gives you a chance to respond.
Okay. So I think maybe your other teacher wasn't aware, and Heather and Jennifer, feel free to jump in, wasn't aware and probably should have been. Yes? Okay. So that, I'm very sorry for that. And that probably needs to be put into place. Some sort of way for other teachers to be aware that you cannot participate or be around activities involving balls or rigorous, aggressive activity.
Right. So your teachers should have access to a copy of your IEP. What you can do to prevent things like that is to carry your own copy around in your notebook. And if somebody tells you something that you know is an accommodation that's on IEP and it goes against that, you can pull out your own copy of the IEP and say, hey, it's right here in writing. If they still disagree with you, in that case, I think I would, if I was the student, I would probably ask to go to the office, say that I had, I wasn't feeling well or something, because maybe the teacher just didn't understand and you need to get somebody to help you immediately because you don't want to get hurt like that.
We have in the past had binders that students carry around. And if it's too much to carry around your whole IEP, at least your modifications and accommodations page that has all of those things in there.
Yeah, your accommodations page for sure. Yes.
That way it's easy for them to navigate and find where it specifically says that. Okay. So that's how I would handle it. Then it's black and white. Heather's completely correct. And I really like the idea of saying, hey, you know what? I just need to go to the office.
Yeah, if your safety is on the line, you need to get yourself to a safe place. And if that happens to be not in the room that you're in, then that's the office.
And once you're in the safe space, if you can come to your teacher with some ideas of alternate activities, that may help too, because if they're a little bit overwhelmed and not quite sure where to begin to accommodate this stuff, you could come and say, well, I can't do this, but because PE teachers probably want you to be active during your class, but I could do this activity or this activity or this activity while my classmates are doing this. And you could bring that alternate idea to them. That way they could see that you're not just trying to be lazy or that kind of thing, because sometimes they just don't quite understand. And while you're not, you're trying to be safe for yourself. If you can come show them that you're really putting in the effort and trying to advocate for your needs, and they might be a little bit more understanding and accepting of that.
Yeah, and this was just an emergency situation. If that happened and if we're just in the situation, I wouldn't say go to the office every day. I would say that would be a one-time thing to get you out of the emergency. And then you also can brainstorm with your TVI, your O&M teacher. What can we do? I'm having struggles in PE.
It doesn't sound like maybe this happened just in PE, but maybe in another place. But that could always be an option is, hey, I need to go see Susie, my TVI, or Heather, my TVI, whatever. That may be a good option for you, Josiah, in that case, a good fail-safe, if that makes sense. So, and that can always be a modification or an accommodation written into your IEP if you need it, that you go see your TVI. Okay. So anybody else, if you're looking at my screen, it says, how do you advocate at home? Sometimes it is easier to advocate at home and in the community because the people there know you best and love you the most. So how do you advocate and accommodate in your home? So you can either raise your hand or you can tell me in the chat, however you are most comfortable. How do you advocate and accommodate in your home? Ava, good to see your hand again, girl. What do you got for me?
So when I usually need to, tell my family at home that I'll need something accommodated, or if I need to advocate for myself, usually I go to my mother about that. I'd say, hey, Mom, can we talk for a second? And then I'd tell her, what I need from her.
Fantastic. Yeah. My dad's the same way for me. So we all kind of have that person we gravitate towards to say, hey, I need this. So that's fantastic, Ava. Great way to advocate. Who else do we have, Leanne?
Anton.
Anton?
So,
hey, Anton.
So how I advocate at home is when something is bothering me, I normally go to my dad about this. So I normally tell my dad how I feel. So if something is bothering me, then I normally just tell my dad how I feel, and then he'll figure it out for me.
Perfect. Yeah, talking to your dad about it is always great. Now make sure that you're starting to work on figuring it out for yourself as you get older, because it's not going to be too long before you have to do all those things for yourself as you move on and get old, like me.
Jennifer?
So like, yeah, like Ava said, I will ask my mother or just any family member, like if I need something or, advocate for something, like, can we talk about this? And talk about advocating for each other and different stuff like that. So I think just talking to my mom and like asking, or just a family member, just that go-to person.
Absolutely. I love that phrase, go-to person. Perfect.
Do you have time for a couple more hands?
Absolutely.
Alyssa?
What I do is I go to my dad, and if I have a problem or something, my dad will like teach me how to fix the situation, or like just do that like on my own.
Great, Alyssa, I love that. And you know what I love most about what you're saying is that your dad is teaching you the skills you need to figure it out and be successful. That's fantastic.
Christian?
So what I do, as Ava said, or not with my mother, but like with my parents in general, just tell them what I need and that sort of idea. But I try to learn most of I try to learn most of it as I go along.
Perfect. Yeah, and you know what? As we are growing and aging, we're all learning as we go. So that's just kind of how things work. So hey guys, we have some more things to go. So I will definitely let you raise your hands. You can put it in the chat, but you're going to get a chance to raise your hand and talk to me here in a second. I have one more slide, and we have plenty of time. So I am not forgetting about you. I just want to make sure we get to this last thing, okay? So I want to talk about the appropriate time to speak up. So here is your chance to shine, guys. Why don't you raise your hand and tell me when you think it's the appropriate time to speak up when you're at school, okay? When you're at school, not at home, but when you're at school, when is it the appropriate time to speak up? And Leanne, they're blowing me up.
Josiah? When is the appropriate time to speak up at school? Josiah. There you go.
When I need something, and when I need like help, or when the class is being too loud. Like last year, I often told the one teacher that the class is really, really loud, and I couldn't think.
That's a great time.
Or when like or when I can't understand something, like in like math, if I like can't understand something, I can ask my teacher for help.
Absolutely, Josiah. It sounds like you are on the right track and you know exactly when to advocate. Props to you, man.
Dane?
Usually I wait for the teacher to stop talking to another kid, and I wait next to them until whenever they're done talking. I ask the teacher my question for accommodations.
Hey, Dane, it sounds like you are a very respectful young man.
Thank you.
Theo?
Well, basically, sometimes if the QTVI says something you don't agree with, you have to sort of think about what it's appropriate to say and what it's not. But quite often, you do want to say something, otherwise they might think that it's okay, that you think it's okay. So, and also if teachers are talking about like a thing they're going to do in class, and you think, how on earth am I going to be able to join in with that? Then you might want to sort of tell them like, oh, this way of doing it is accessible. Like I found out recently, Google Forms quizzes are accessible. So for schools that have Google for Education or anything, they're a very good accessible way to do quizzes and stuff.
Absolutely, Theo. And you know, I love how you pointed out that you now know that it's accessible, so you can tell them, hey, if you put it in forms or whatever, I can do that. And that's a great way to speak up and advocate for yourself. So that's fantastic.
Miss Jennifer.
I believe like when the best time you can advocate is, I mean, even after class or whenever, like if it's not like immediately, you know, just in the vicinity, just like in the area or whatever, just say, you know, next time, or ask like a teacher next time, can you do this alternative instead or something after class, so you're not like interrupting the class while the teacher is teaching.
You're right, Jennifer, but I want to ask, and this is a point, something to think about. There are times when the teacher's teaching, and if you wait till she's done, you may miss out on content. You may miss out on part of the lesson. So sometimes it might be appropriate to say, hey, can you wait a minute and get me started, because otherwise I'm going to miss everything. And I know Heather and Jennifer would kind of agree as well. We see that a lot. Students try to be really polite and wait till the end, and then they miss out on everything. And we don't want you to miss out on all of the instruction. And while we love that you guys are so polite and respectful, it's really important that you don't miss out on everything the teacher's teaching too. So sometimes it's okay to say, hey.
Sorry about that. You paused, so I was going.
I
okay,
know.
that's
and
okay.
You gotta take advantage of my pauses. You do. I know.
Dia has her hand raised.
Oh, Dia.
Now, voice.
Okay. So, so you know, whenever I'm in a math class, I usually use something known as IXL learning.
Okay.
And, when it comes to, say, the graphs on a word problem, when it comes to a graph on a problem, I might have to ask the teacher to help me, I might ask the teacher to help me read the graph. Or if I have to to type something exponential, like say 6x squared, I would have to ask the teacher to help me click on the exponent button before I type the 2.
Absolutely. That's a great time to advocate for yourself, Dia. Yeah. And math was never my favorite, so good job for continuing to take lots of math classes.
So Christian.
Hey, and Leanne, maybe Christian and one more, and then we need to kind of...
Yep, that's fine.
What was the question again? Sorry.
Hey, Christian, we are talking about when is the appropriate time to speak up when you're in school and tell people what you need or may not need.
I would think like in the middle of the class. I know it's not polite, but I mean, if you know that you need something, I mean, it's just the moment that you need it.
Absolutely, Christian. I was just saying that we are on the same wavelength, bud. Like great minds think alike.
Okay, it's back to you, Susan.
Great. Hey guys, you know what? I am so impressed by your knowledge of your IEPs and your advocacy for yourself. I'm just impressed, blown away. You are some of the smartest kiddos that I have worked with, and I can't wait to see what you have to bring to the table tomorrow. I know Jennifer has a lot of fantastic things planned for us, and I can't wait to kind of hear about them.
And
yeah.
Susan, if you're done, can you stop sharing and we'll see Jennifer Baker.
Tomorrow, guys, we are going to do an escape room where we're going to answer some questions about social skills and daily living skills and just life skills. So you guys will be able to answer in the chat, and then we may take a few minutes to unmute, but for the most part, I think we're going to do a lot of chat stuff tomorrow. So just so you're ready. And we have a bunch of questions to make our way through to beat our mission for the week. And we also wanted to just mention we had our art stuff that went out yesterday. So we've gotten to see a couple of our cool art projects. And today's
extension activity.
Yeah, our extension activity, that's the word, was to write your signature on your art. So once you make your art, be sure to have your parents help you practice doing their signature, because the signature is a really important thing as you get older. And since we were talking about the IEP, when you're at your IEP meeting, you'll actually have an opportunity to sign your IEP. So as you practice it this summer, then when you go to your IEP meetings this fall and maybe in the spring, depending when your last one was, you can sign using your newfound signatures.
Well, I want to thank you all. I've enjoyed camp. I am looking forward to tomorrow and hope you all had a great time figuring out what your accommodations were. Thank you all so much, instructors.
Thank you.
Thank you,
we will see you guys tomorrow.